We're breaking down your dream and doom scenarios for the Buffalo Bills in the 2025 NFL Draft today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. Well, folks, welcome in. We're going to have some fun on today's episode, and I asked the Herd Mentality Discord channel. Pause. Maybe you don't know what that is. Well, if you have a subscription to either the subtext or the Substack, which you could check out in the link in today's show notes, you are in the Herd Mentality Discord. We've got over 1,700 Bills fans in there, and we talk Bills, Sabres, life, what we're cooking, all kinds of fun stuff. There's a book club, a movie club, a lot of cool stuff. And so I interact with the Discord pretty much all day. And over the weekend, I asked the Discord for them to provide me with their dream and doom scenarios for the Buffalo Bills in the 2025 NFL Draft. I told them it could be as specific or as broad as you want it to be, and that I would react to the scenarios sent to me on today's episode. So here we are. This is fun. It's going to cover a lot of the big talking points kind of going into this draft for the Buffalo Bills, and I'll give my reaction to how a lot of people are feeling in terms of the most exciting possibilities and the most discouraging possibilities. So we are going to go on a roller coaster today, kind of talking about the extremes of what could happen in this draft. Let's dig into it. First one comes from Chris. Chris says, I'm not going to be as dramatic as to say this is a doom scenario, but I'd be pretty bummed out if they combine their 2 second-rounders to move up to like 34 or 35. I think we can walk away from the first 62 picks with some nice players, but I will feel a little suffocated if we only end up with 2 picks in the first 100 selections. I don't think I would love this either. And if you look at trading away 56 and 62, right, the Bills' 2 second-round picks, that's going to be 624 points in draft capital. To give you an idea, pick 30, the Bills' first-round pick, is worth 620 points. So you are talking about packaging 56 and 62. That's going to get you higher than 34 or 35. That should get you back into the first round if somebody's willing to come out, which I'm guessing a team's not willing to go from the late 30s all the way back to 56. But if you are looking at the scenario of trading like way up into the second round, top of the second round, 34 or 35, you are going to get probably a 4th-round pick back in that deal. So that's something to keep in mind. To me, the primary objectives for the Bills in this draft are to secure 2 things. Now, there's other things that I want them to do, but more than anything, got to have a starting corner, and I got to have a starting defensive tackle. Maybe not a starting defensive tackle this year, but somebody that can pair with Daquan Jones this year and succeed him next year. Those 2 things have to happen. And so I will say if the Bills do move way up into the second round, from 56, you're probably going to have a good chance to get that done. Now, you're not going to be able to get as much of the other stuff done, but you could probably pretty comfortably come away with a good plan at corner and a good plan at D tackle. Hopefully the Bills see it the same way. Wagon Circler says, doom scenario for me is safety in the first or even second round, which would mean A, they already don't have confidence in their second-round pick from last year in Cole Bishop, and B, that one of D-line corner edge won't be addressed in the first 3 rounds. Dream scenario is having Kenneth Grant. A big theme in looking through all these responses that were said to me is a lot of people's dream scenario is Kenneth Grant. That's one of mine for sure. I'd love that at pick 30. I do agree with Wagon Circler here on safety. Not a pressing need to me, and I know there are people that disagree with me. There are people that are very concerned about the safety position. I can't get there. I think Taylor Rapp is at least a sufficient level starter. The defense is clearly better when he's available. I get he's had injuries, and unfortunately those injuries have kept him out in big games late in the year. But, I mean, Cole Bishop, we cannot possibly be writing that guy off. Last year, he was at least a reasonable answer for a guy that really was behind. You know, it felt like throughout OTAs, he was drinking through a fire hose. And then he gets hurt in training camp and misses a ton of foundational time in setting the defense. And then he gets playing time and is objectively terrible to start, but got better. You can't possibly be writing off Cole Bishop. And you've heard me talk about Derek Forrest. I'm very excited there. Damar Hamlin gives you some level of a floor as a depth player. And you have Cam Lewis. I'm not there like some people are. And maybe that's upgradable. Like, sure, I can listen to that. Like, it's an upgradable area. But these issues at corner, D tackle, and then D end, way more significant positions and way more pressing needs, in my opinion. And I totally agree that if you go with the safety early, that means a significantly more important need gets addressed with a lesser selection. And so I take exception with that as well. Mormon 8 says, I love James Cook, but I'm going to say my dream scenario is a draft day trade where someone overpays for Cook and we draft an exciting replacement and get back on the rookie contract timeline at running back. I'll say this, a 1-for-1 would be great. You trade away James Cook, and then you take that pick and you draft some really good running back and you reset the money. That'd be awesome, right? That'd be awesome. I'll stop short of calling it a dream scenario, but it would be nice. I'm very fine with James Cook playing out this season, walking in free agency. You'll get a compensatory pick likely in the 2027 draft. And then you enter next season having to figure it out at running back, knowing two things. Ty Johnson has one more year left on his deal, and Ray Davis has 2 more years left on his deal. Then you can go into that draft or that offseason just needing to have the big play back. It doesn't have to be the 50% of snaps back. I think that's one thing we have to acknowledge here. It doesn't have to be a 50% of snaps player. It just has to be somebody that has big play potential to complement what you get in Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. But my panic level would be none. Like, I am going to have 0 panic level in going out and finding this big play back. And yeah, maybe it'll be a little bit of a curve for them to give what James Cook gave this offense, but James Cook benefits from this offense. Not only that he's a 50% of the snaps player and isn't asked to do more. I think that's helpful for him in his overall skill set. But the run blocking, the run scheme, Josh Allen as your quarterback, he benefits from that. And so would some other running back that has speed and big playability. So I just don't have the panic there. So yeah, sign me up for the 1-for-1. I'm cool there. But the overall panic level that I have for replacing James Cook is just not very high. And again, I know that's something that people disagree with me with, just like the safety position. And folks, I hope you don't listen to this podcast simply to just agree with everything I say. I want to share my opinions, the reason that I have them, listen to yours, and, we can debate and have healthy conversations. It's okay if we don't see everything the same. Maybe you think the Bills should meet James Cook's contract demands. Maybe you think that the Bills should be thinking about a safety early in the draft. It's okay. It's football. These are healthy conversations to have. This is just how I see it. And I respectfully disagree with the other side of the equation. But it's okay. It's okay to disagree. All right, coming up next, we got a whole lot more to get into, including some conversation on that safety dynamic. So, folks, please be sure to stick with me. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire Stick TV 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you enter your streams for your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Plus, the entertainment options are endless. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, folks, let's keep it going here. The next one today comes from Yaron, who says, my dream scenario does not include specific names. It involves getting a first-day starter at CB2, a defensive tackle who wins over Daquan Jones's job, a fast wide receiver, and a solution for the Cook situation, whatever that is. I also want to add a defensive end who will be a starter next year. Doom, get all kinds of prospects that are projects to build for the future, and look for starters at what is left in free agency. All right, with your dream stuff, I'm with you. Although, like I said earlier, I'm not really panicking over the Cook replacement thing. On the Doom side of things, I would say there's really only one starting job for this team that looks to be open to me, and that would be cornerback 2 opposite of Christian Benford. So if the Bills do kind of draft guys that are more eventual starters, I'd say that's not completely the end of the world to me. I know we want that instant impact from rookies. We want to feel great about the players right away that the Bills select. But sometimes that also winds up being the 2022 haul where, after that rookie season and during that rookie season, you're thinking, what do they have here? Is Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard, James Cook, Christian Benford? What do they have? Well, you found out, right? And so the hard pill to swallow to me in that scenario, if they do kind of take more project-y players, is that you have to live with Dane Jackson as your CB2. And of course, I don't really look at the free agent market and feel good about, coming in and upgrading Dane Jackson based on the remaining corners. Now, things can change after the draft where, a team is able to acquire some players that leads to other players that they already have being expendable. And all of a sudden you have some corners that would make sense to sign and upgrade. Maybe you look to the trade market, but I'd be disappointed to some extent if the Bills came out of this draft and the prevailing thought is, well, I guess we have to live with Dane Jackson at CB2. But I do think to some extent you are playing the long game at D tackle, at D end. If you do add some speed at receiver, a depth at linebacker, stuff like that, I think you are kind of, playing the long game with some of those positions. And I kind of expect for some of that to be true. Colin says, I want to preface this by saying I would be stunned if McBean entertained this. My dream and doomsday scenario are interlocked together. Abdul Carter is my favorite player in this draft. Seeing the Bills move up to get a true alpha and blue chipper at edge would get my chest pounding like a gorilla. Of course, once the adrenaline wore off, I'd be deep in my thoughts about how we are going to fill our other needs and would turn doomsday real quick. Man, would Groot and Carter be a fun pairing, though. Yeah, Colin, I think that Abdul Carter out of Penn State's going to be my number one player in this draft. I'm leaning that way. I got about a week to sort that out, but I'm leaning that way. But I still can't stomach the idea of what it would take to go to the top of the draft, top 3-4 picks to get him. You're talking about at least 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. That feels like the minimum that you'd have to give up to go get him. And you're doing that for a guy who's never played a down in the NFL. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow. The opportunity cost also makes me very uncomfortable. Like, you could certainly go do this and, you get Abdul Carter and he may or may not be awesome. I think he's going to be awesome. I don't know. I think he is. But now you're also sacrificing 3 other very good swings to get good players in the other first-round pick and the 2 second-round picks. And, yeah, you can do – I know what people do. They say, well, wouldn't you trade Kyer Elam, Boogie Basham, Dalton Kincaid, and A.J. Epinesa for Abdul Carter? Well, yeah, sure. Right? Like, that's such a silly way to look at it. Like, go ahead and just name the 4 least inspiring selections that the Bills have made in the first and second rounds and saying that's what you're giving up. Well, what if it's not that, right? I mean, I think that's such a interesting way to phrase it and spin it. I've seen that exact response back to me, and I'm like, well, what if? Okay, I can play this game too. I can give you a bunch of really cool players that would make that sound less good. So, yeah, I don't think this will happen. I would certainly find myself in a similar position where I'd probably get really excited about Abdul Carter, and then I'd probably be in the dumps about, boy, what did we just do? What did we just do? That'd be tough. Sniff has got one for us here. Bill's dream scenario in the draft. Either Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon fall to 30, and we stick and pick our nose tackle. Package the 2 second-round picks to move up and take the best available corner. We'll love to trade one of the picks directly for a current NFL starting corner, but I don't know who would be available. Use pick 109 to get a quality developmental backup at edge, and then some combination of the remaining picks to take a tight end 3, kick return specialist, competition at linebacker, and an explosive pass catcher. I don't believe these move the needle for us in the grand scheme, but can vastly improve our floor. I'd say I mostly like this. I don't think the trade up, though, is required to get the corner. And if you don't have to do that, that puts another day 2 pick back on the board to add more premium talent to your roster. So I think I mostly like what you're saying with a lot of those ideas, especially kind of hitting on some of the sneaky needs, competition at linebacker, tight end 3, the explosive pass catcher. I definitely see a lot of that the same way. The doomsday scenario for Sniff is taking edge in the first round and having a significant number of corners and D tackles taken in round 2 ahead of our first pick in that round. I worry about that as well. I think whenever you kind of work through scenarios and mock drafts where the defensive end is the first pick, it gets dicey at both D tackle and corner. And now you're going into day 2 with a defensive end that you probably really like, but you have not taken care of your most important 2 things to get done in this draft. And I do think that the talent cliffs at corner and defensive tackle come quicker than defensive end, and defensive end is the least pressing of the 3 primary needs. So I wouldn't say it's doomsday, like super doomy, but I do think that's setting up for a complicating scenario to take care of your most important things. Tables, that's a name of somebody in our Discord channel. These are all their Discord names. Table says dream, Grant or Harmon at pick 30, Savone Revel or Darian Porter at 56, edge or D tackle at 62, depending on the board or a small trade back, and then Zy Alexander / Dorian Strong in the 4th and whatever after. Yeah, I tell you, I'd love that too. Grant or Harmon easily solidifies 1 tech. Porter or Revel at 56 would be great. Then you come back, get another edge or D tackle. I'm with you. Zy Alexander, Dorian Strong feel like great double dip options at corner. And then, yeah, I mean, the rest of it, okay. Like get a tight end 3 and a linebacker and maybe an interior offensive lineman, something like that. I think that's a good, realistic dream scenario. Tables has a doom scenario. Offense with the first 2 picks, likely wide receiver than running back. These would make it so much tougher to get defensive impact at positions of need. And even though Jimbo's situation seems tenuous, I don't like the idea of boxing ourselves into trading him or rostering 4 running backs. I also would prefer to keep the continuity on offense instead of trading Jimbo if Henderson was the pick in the 2nd. Golden would be fun, but the needs on defense are so ginormously massive and amazingly huge. I totally agree with this. I'd have a hard time reconciling this. Like if the Bills went Matthew Golden and Travion Henderson as the top 2 picks, like the fantasy community is going to love it. The Madden people are going to love it. The football people are going to be like, whoa. I guess I'd have a hard time reconciling this given the needs that this team has, the performance of the team last year. I mean, I think we're safe. It feels like Brandon Beane has continuously pointed to that the offense was really good last year, like at every turn, every opportunity he's had to say, we're talking about a really good offense, scored over 30 points per game. It's the highest scoring offense in Buffalo Bills history. I mean, clearly this team needs help on defense, particularly at corner and D tackle and D end. I think we are safe here. I really do. But who knows? Who knows? I think that's a realistic doomsday scenario of Matthew Golden and Travion Henderson. And you've heard me speak very favorably about both those players. I like those players. Those are good players. But I think you would be failing at maximizing your opportunities to make your team better, because you're no closer to having the answers that you absolutely need on defense. I mean, we're talking about a Bills defense that was bottom 25% of the league on third downs, bottom 25% of the league in passing defense, giving up crazy amounts of first downs. Like, that's what your problem was. That's where you need help. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you here. I wouldn't love that. I know that some people might, though, but I wouldn't. All right, plenty more to get to here, including one scenario that's a dream scenario that has a Bills picking a linebacker in the second round. We'll talk about that and more, so folks, be sure to stick with me. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the Buffalo Bills forward as we look ahead to next season. This week's Armada and clear-cut Player of the Week is Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston. Just like the Armada is built for a heavy-duty workload, Maxwell Hairston is NFL ready to be the starter opposite of Christian Benford at cornerback. This dude is aggressive. He loves to hit. He loves to make plays on the ball. He's a really instinctive zone corner, but he's got all the athleticism in the world to also play man coverage, really giving the Bills a guy that can thrive in a variety of coverage techniques. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think Maxwell Hairston can do here. It's clear that our Player of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, got a few more to work through here today. The next one comes from Pat, who says, Dream, pick 30, Kenneth Grant, pick 39, Trey Amos. So that's Kenneth Grant, D-tackle, Michigan, Trey Amos, corner, Ole Miss, and then 42, Carson Schweschinger, linebacker, UCLA. Pat goes on to say, defensive needs handled in the first 3 picks. Beane trades up to get them. I'm open to Matthew Golden if he's there, but we would need to be super aggressive to get a solid defensive tackle and corner in the second, I feel. I just don't see the quality being there in day 2 if we aren't in the first 10 picks or so. All right, so Kenneth Grant at 30, Trey Amos at 39, Carson Schweschinger at 42 is the dream. I like those players. I like every one of those players. I haven't really talked about Carson Schweschinger, but he's a ton of fun. His tape was phenomenal this past season. Athletic, good size, good football player. He'll be my linebacker, too, behind Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. I like those players, but you're talking about picking 30, 39, and 42. You have given up a ton. You have given up a ton to have those selections. And so that's why, I mean, that's hard for me. I mean, you're picking, your scheduled picks are 30, 56, and 62. Your next pick after that is 109. I mean, you gave up stuff next year. You might have, I don't know how you got to this point. That's a tough pill to swallow. And now I do love Kenneth Grant. I mean, I like these players, but you gave up a lot of other players to get these ones. And I'm not super concerned about linebacker right now, to the point where you're trading up to 42 for Carson Schweschinger after trading up to 39. So I'm not in on this dream scenario. Caleb says, dream for me, Kenneth Grant, pick 30. That's defensive tackle, Michigan. Landon Jackson, Arkansas defensive end at 56. Darian Porter, corner, Iowa State at 62. And then trade pick 109, 169, and 177 to Kansas City for pick 95. With pick 95, it's Kyle Williams, the receiver out of Washington State. Denzel Burke, Ohio State corner at 132. Luke Lachey, pick 206. I think he's a tight end from Iowa. Caleb says, this draft gives me everything I want. 2 difference makers on the D-line and a high ceiling starter at CB2 with solid depth with Burke. I'll tell you what, you give me those first 4 picks, and I'm not going to care too much about the rest. Kenneth Grant, Landon Jackson, Darian Porter, Kyle Williams. I mean, that's pretty much exactly how I would want to attack those positions, like realistically. And I think the Bills love Landon Jackson. I like Landon Jackson a lot too. I think that'd be a great haul. And I mean, the rest of the picks from there is just a bonus. I'm with you. I think that'd be a great haul. The doom scenario for Caleb is no trades, and I'm only going to include the top 4 picks. He says Nick Eamon-Warry, that's a safety from South Carolina at pick 30. James Pierce at pick 56, that's the edge rusher from Tennessee. Maxwell Hairston, corner, Kentucky at 62. And then Isaiah Bond, the receiver from Texas at 109. And Caleb goes on to say, Eamon-Warry is a good player, but I don't like a high pick at safety, though safety does get mocked to Buffalo quite often. I don't get the hype behind Pierce. I'd hate it if Buffalo got him. Hairston and Bond, I think, are talented players, but way too much character concerns for my taste. I don't know of any character concerns with Maxwell Hairston. I like Maxwell Hairston a lot, and if you told me he was the Bills pick at 30, I'd probably be okay with it. So I don't know anything there. But I do think that overall, that's pretty doomy. I do like the Hairston pick at 62 a ton, but the rest is just not for me. Eamon-Warry, the safety out of South Carolina, he's got all the athleticism in the whole world. Physical upside for days. I don't think he's a very good football player right now. I don't see a very instinctive player. I think I see a guy that, based on physical traits, can make some plays. I don't think he's a highly instinctive safety. He'll be a top 30 player for me on my board, I'm sure, just based on upside, but he's so far from being a polished player. And again, you've heard what I've had to say about safety. I don't have to rehash that. James Pierce, that'd be a tough pick for me as well, where I think he's just a fast guy. I don't see a ton of flexibility to go with the speed, and I don't know that he's got a great run defense profile. That'd be a tough pick for me. And then, Isaiah Bond. I mean, it finally came out, some of the off the field stuff that I've hinted at and others have hinted at, sexual assault allegations at Texas. And I think there could be more to come there. So that'd be a big, big risk. And I don't know. I'm not sure the skill set there is really worth it for what you're having to take on. And I pass on that as well. I think that's pretty doomy. I'm with you on that. Steve says, doom scenario. The Bills draft a defensive tackle, then cornerback, then wide receiver, holding off on edge. When they do draft an edge, he's a project with big upside, but not ready just yet. Then in preseason game 1, Bosa goes down for 6 to 8 games. Well, the Bosa layer here makes this pretty concerning. You'd be down Bosa and Michael Hoyt for the first 6 games of the year. That'd be tough. I am fascinated to see how the Bills do balance out wide receiver and defensive end in this draft. It feels like the type of receiver that the Bills are looking for with, some speed, but that kind of profiles more as a depth player. I think that could be easily obtained with a day 3 pick. So I am comfortable waiting there. But yeah, I mean, the injury layer here makes this tough. I mean, some of this is not really an issue that I take, but when you add in a Bosa injury, that's not great. The dream scenario for Steve is 3 quarterbacks, 4 offensive linemen, 2 running backs, and 2 wide receivers go in the first 29 picks. A run on offense ahead of the Bills would be a gift. Yeah, I agree, and I think there's a decent chance of this. I think the Bills could be in a pretty good spot to have a pretty attractive pick at corner. I don't know if Derek Harmon or Kenneth Grant get there, but if the Bills had the opportunity to pick from Grant or Harmon, and then some of those corners, be in a pretty good spot to feel like you got appropriate value at the end of the first round and address an important need. Ben says, mine is super broad, but at the top, I remain pretty fixated on the concept of addressing the D-line at 30 and then getting in on the run of corners projected for the 30s and 40s through a trade up from 56, instead of potentially starting the run on corners at 30, presumably contingent on no corners getting drafted between Barron and 30. Yeah, look, the corner run in this draft is going to be fascinating to me. I think before the Bills pick, and probably within the first, I would say maybe 18 selections, you're going to see Travis Hunter, Jahdae Barron, and Will Johnson all go. After that, I have no idea. There could be every other corner left for the Bills at 30, or there could be some slimmer options, right? Like Hunter, Johnson, Barron, I think are all off the board, definitely no later than pick 20. So you could be in a position where you're choosing between Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, Shavon Revel, and Azarie Thomas. I can also see that trimmed down as well. I think it's very important. This is what it comes down to. The Bills and Brandon Beane have to have the right feel for this cornerback class and how the league is going to value it, or it could get dicey. And that's why I would totally understand the stick and pick at 30. I think the only reason I wouldn't pick a corner at 30 is if Derek Harmon or Kenneth Grant were on the board. That would be like the only reason. Because I think you're going to have a good chance to get Trey Amos or Maxwell Hairston there at pick 30. Now, maybe you trade back out of the first round, get one of them, and then you get Tyleik Williams, something like that. I mean, I could see these combinations working out as well, but you got to know what you need. You got to know how the rest of the league values these players, and your timing is everything in this draft to really come away with the type of haul that's going to make us feel good about how the needs were addressed. Folks, this was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Kind of diving through some of the doom scenarios of the herd mentality Discord. I'm sure a lot of this aligns with maybe what you're thinking as well, as we are getting closer and closer and closer to this draft. And so a lot of fun stuff this week. Have a great guest lined up. I always like to bring in some outside voices for the draft conversation, so you're not just listening to me break down these prospects. So we have that lined up this week. We'll make sure we get to any other pre-draft visitors, so you're well-versed on that. We're stacking this Bills draft board. It's coming quick, folks, so don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.